Hey everyone, welcome to part 4 of the 3D platformer tutorial series. If you have seen the previous ones, welcome back. If not, and you're just wanting to check out these platforms, awesome. So getting started, I did mention that I'll be doing multiple different type of platforms in this video. I did decide on the 3 that I'm going to do, which are going to be ice platforms, gravity, and spike platforms. Ice platforms, spike platforms are like the most popular things that you do see, and then gravity, just because it's super simple, it was easy just to throw in there. But nonetheless, let's get started. And before I get into the platforms themselves, I do want to let you know that I did change the static meshes. I changed them to the 3D models that an artist that was previously part of my team created, and they are wonderful assets for this tutorial. This is just a very generic platform. This is for the ice platform, and this is for the spike platform. So really great tools. Really appreciate him for allowing me to use them as well. So yeah, going into this, let's go into our parent platform. What we'll need to do first is go to the viewport. From here, we're going to add a collision box. I'll go over that in a second. Name this to collision box. I just prefer collision box over box. And then make sure it is moved under the platform. This is important because when the platform moves, you want to make sure the collision box is following the platform. And then the reason we are adding a collision box is because this box is what's going to trigger our platform's effect. Whenever the character enters this box, that is going to trigger the effect. So whether it is a platform that launches you in the air, if it makes you lose gravity, makes you slip on the floor, whatever the case may be, it's going to activate inside this range. So you want to make sure to scale this up to which it is a size that you find acceptable to activate your platform. So I'm going to go into 95, 95, and 5. You can also increase this if you want so that there's just more range. You don't activate the end overlap more often. Whatever the case is, just find something that you find acceptable. I'm going to go ahead and just do this. And let's go into it. I move the moving down just so that it's out of the way. But the reason for adding the collision box is so now we can use the actor begin and end overlap. These are the events that are going to trigger the activate, deactivate of the platform. So we'll go into begin overlap and end overlap. All right. And then next, what we need to do is we need to check if the person overlapping is in fact a character that we want to trigger this effect on. So for me, it's only going to be the player. I'm not going to have NPCs or anything of the sorts. It's just going to be player running around. So that's actually pretty simple. If for you have different characters, try to use the parent actor of all of them. If you want to trigger just every character, great. That's what I'm going to be showing. But nonetheless, just make sure you choose accordingly. Because what we're going to do is from the begin overlap, I'm going to cast character. I'm going to have this affect any type of character that overlaps. I'm only having one. It's very simple. And then next, what I want to do is I need to check to see if this character has ever or is already overlapping with the character. So if it ever activates twice, generally the begin overlap is not going to activate twice, but nonetheless, I'm going to be able to store that as well, because the other key important thing is I want to make sure that when that person exits the platform, so they end the overlap, that I remove them from the effects. And that's what's going to call the deactivate. Because I also want to make sure that when they exit, it's very easy to just go back on the platform and then it will start the effect all over again. If you have them exit, you don't deactivate it, and they go back on, it's not going to do anything, or things could break regardless. So I'm going to create this new function called check overlapping. The inputs, I'm going to put a character. So let's do overlap actor. Change this to character. And then what we'll need is, let's turn this into a pure first and bring this here. And we'll do that. Obviously, it's not done, but I'm just showing you. This is what's going to connect and check to see if they are overlapping, and then we'll have a bool come out here. So the other thing we'll need to do is we need to check if this actor is currently overlapping. So we're going to have the actor stored in an array. So we'll name this as overlapping actors. Character, object reference, and then we want to make sure we turn this to array. We're going to pull this in, make sure to loop it. We're going to check to see if this overlap actor equals to any of the current overlapping actors. If that is true, we're not going to do anything. If it's false, then we'll be able to activate the platform. So from there, we're going to see if this is equal. So if this array character equals into this actor, type in overlap actor and branch. From here, if this happens to be true and they do equal, we want to be able to track that. So we're going to create two local variables. We're going to name this is overlapping. Change this to a bool and make sure this is single. Go into the next one. We're going to name this temp index. Change this to an integer and change that to a single. We're going to call this store or set, sorry. I just got storing in my head for some reason, and connect these to the true. So if this comes out to be true, then we're going to set this to true. So that, yes, this actor does in fact equal to one of these elements. And then we also want to store this index. All right. And after that, once the loop is complete, we want to pass along these stored ones. So what we can do is you can just do a return node and then just plug in overlap and then also just do this. I'm not going to do that. You can, and that's actually perfectly acceptable. But if I do this, what I want to do is actually, I'm going to make this a little longer just for my sake, is because, let's see, overlap is overlap. Can I actually do that? No, it can't match. Cool. Turn that to that, and then we're just going to name this to index. Plug that in here, and this is true. And then for the false, I'm going to plug this in, turn that off, and I'm just going to do -1. This is just so that if this is ever false, it's going to pull a -1. So you'll never be able to get a copy. Because technically, if you have index 0, you could still get the index 0 copy. So just making sure that regardless, I don't run into that. All right. So now if we go back to the event graph, we have this. So it is overlapping, and we also have the index. Let's branch this. Now for this, if it is overlapping, if it is true, we don't want to activate. And then if it's false, we want to activate. But I'm actually going to do a not bool here, just because I don't like to start my things off with the false of a branch. That's just a preference. You don't have to do it. Not necessary. But now this is going to come out to be true, because if they're not overlapping, not is true. And then from here, we're going to want to activate. So now we're going to need a activate and deactivate platform effect. So activate platform, deactivate. I can't spell, geez, in random caps. All right. And then on both of these, we're going to want to add an input index and index. Go back to the event graph. We're going to now pull in the activate. And then for this being true, connect the pin. That is what's going to activate it. And then for the end overlap, we're just going to copy this, delete the not, and just connect that. And then we'll do deactivate. So now we can activate and deactivate the platform. And then for these activate and deactivate platforms, we'll be able to just override them in the, what's the word I'm looking for? In the child blueprint. All right. So we got that set up. Let's see. Let's test this out real quick. Let's just go with activate platform. Oh, we missed a step. Okay. We're going to grab this. If they're not overlapping, we need to make sure to add this into the array. Add. Plug this in. Plug that in. Pull that up. Just going to get that out of the way. But what we're doing is we're just taking this character and storing it. So just like the reason for doing the check overlap, we want to be able that we have this stored here so that if we do check overlap later on, it'll actually come out to be true. And then we'll do this. So now the overlap actor is passed into here, and then we'll be able to activate this platform. For the purpose of testing, I'm going to grab the overlap actor. We're going to get a copy. We can just drag that in. I'm not going to make this neat because I'm just going to destroy actor. What happens is when I overlap, I should just die. Bam, and I'm gone. But that's perfect. That's telling us it works. So love that. Let's destroy this because we don't want every platform to kill people. Unless that's your intent, you do you. And we have that set up. We can go ahead and close the parent. Now we get to go into creating the other platforms, which would be a seamless, a lot easier to do. Let's go into create child blueprint. We're going to change the name to platform. Let's go with gravity, just because it's the easiest. Open this up. On my platform, I'm just going to change this to a darker material. Change it to whatever you want. And for us, we'll actually see here the begin overlap is showing with the parent overlap. And if we actually did end overlap, you don't have to do this, but if you wanted a visual, you could do add call to parent. And then it's literally the same thing as this. So if we were to do this, bam. You don't have to do this. It's going to do it automatically. But if you like the visual, you can have that there. Or if you want to do something in between or after, you can. What we're going to want to do is override those activate and deactivate functions. So in here, we don't want the parent because we're going to be doing our own thing. And then we're going to get the overlap actors, get, and then get a copy. And then now you can do whatever you want. So for gravity, we're going to want to let's just set their gravity. Gravity. Um, set gravity. What's it called? I think we need character movement. Set gravity. Scale. There we go. And just set it to 0. So awesome. You step on it. Now you have no gravity. You'll float. Cool. Let's go to deactivate. Let's do the same thing. Plug that in. Change this back to 1. But at the end of deactivate, what we need to do is make sure that the overlap or the characters removed from the overlap actors. So we'll want to do, let's just grab this, remove index, and type index. Awesome. So we're nearly done with the gravity. But one last thing is, if somebody was to have no gravity and float, it's going to call the deactivate immediately. So another thing to do is, let's just give it a nice little delay. So if we did delay, you'll notice that you can't type anything here. And that's because in functions you can't type delays, but in here we can. So that's where it gets a little tricky for the gravity. But really what we can do is, if we were to open up this parent, let's go back into our parent platform. Copy this. We're going to use most of the parent, but actually I'm going to just rewrite it a bit for the gravity. So instead of deactivating immediately when this is true, we'll just say, let's delay 3 seconds. So you have 3 seconds of floating. The other thing to add on to that is, let's promote this. 0, let's do 0 gravity duration. Make that instant editable. I'm gonna set the default to like 5. So now it'll deactivate after 5 seconds. So let's test this out. Let's pull in gravity. Walk on here. Look at me. So I jumped and now I have no gravity and I'm floating in the air. And then time ran out and I fall. Boom. And I jump. Obviously it's a very long time. You don't have to set it to 0. You could also, let's say, go to here, promote this, and control that too. So we could do 0.3. Let's also make that instant editable. So it's 0.3 and gravity is not as intense. And if you click on it, you can see 0.3 here and 5. Just set the defaults to however, and there you go. That's gravity. So just like that, we completed gravity fairly quickly. Awesome. Let's move to the next one. Create child, and we're going to go with spikes. Open up spikes. I'm going to change the mesh to spike. Change this to spike. Also, when changing meshes, make sure you change the mesh on all 3 static meshes. Spike. Awesome. And then for my collision box, I'm going to move this up. And then I'm also going to change this to like 10. And that way when they collide, it just collides in here. I'm actually going to make this a little smaller so that it just covers the spikes themselves. And for spikes, what I'm going to do is, let's see, we're going to want to kill the player. So with that, we need to, let's see, activate platform, deactivate platform. We don't need deactivate actually. Spikes are going to kill you. Don't worry about it. Overlap. Get overlap. And get a copy. And then you can just destroy actor. So if we were to now pull in spikes, I'm going to put it as a wall. Let's pull that up. I'll just die. Awesome. Which is great. It kills you, but it's kind of a little bland. Nothing happens. You just kind of disappear. So another thing is we're not going to want to just kill the player. What I want to do is, for this specifically, I'm going to create a function in my character, which is going to require me to cast to my specific character. So we're going to do cast to third person. And then now I'm going to need to create that kill function that I want, just so that something actually happens. I don't just die. So for here, shrink this. Custom event. Let's go with kill player. So we're going to kill the player and kind of do a bit more with it. What I want them to do is kind of do that just like I flop to the ground, I'm dead now. But I also want to make sure that when that happens, you can't move the character and you also can't move the camera. You just kind of see yourself die, and then after a certain time, you respawn. So with this, we're going to want to set simulate. Now, if you're using physics, this isn't really going to work for you. You need to set up a different system, which is with ragdolling. I'm not doing that because I'm not using physics, so this works great for me. I recommend looking into ragdoll effect and then just getting that set up so that you can do that. If you're using physics, we're going to want to disable input. We don't want to let the player do anything. We also want to set mobility of the camera and set it to static. We want to make sure that they can't move it. And then we want to delay. Let's say 1.5. And then destroy actor. So now, when we kill the player, they'll drop dead, and then you can't do anything, and 1.5 seconds later, you die. But then there's the other problem of, hey, I'm dead, now I can't even play the game. So we're just going to make a really quick revive system. Very simple, just event destroyed. Let's get game mode. Is a restart player. And then we want to get player controller. Just very generic. Player dies, you respawn. And then now we walk in here. We should see this. Oh, we missed an important key part. Under spikes, kill player. And another thing I noticed is I didn't correct this name. So let me go into platforms. And that's a bit better. So now we'll kill the player. And when killing the player, what we want to do is let's do this. Index. Is valid. Remove index. Index. Now this may not even be completely necessary. It may do absolutely nothing, but I like to cover my bases. You don't have to do this. It may not even be the greatest thing to input, but nonetheless, I like to make sure that they are removed from here no matter what, and that index is completely gone. So with that, we called it, right? Yeah, kill player. Cool. We should die. Okay, so let's see. I'm not flopping. Set stimulate. Oh, there we go. Forgot to take that on. Now die. Okay, so I'm falling through. Mesh simulate. Is it because it's... Oh, is it because I don't actually have a floor? Hold on. Let me replace actor with parent. What if I die? Okay, I still fall through. So it's not ragdolling correctly. Give me 1 second. I found what's wrong. So what happened was, for some reason, my mesh was not set up with collision enabled. So I had to go over here, open up your third person character, go to mesh, typed in collision, and then make sure custom, collision enabled, pawn, and then I can ignore the camera. Just blocking. And then that should be all you need to do to fix the spikes here. Oh, one thing actually, I forgot to turn off physics. So physics. Make sure that's off. All right. And now when I step on it, I'm dead. Let me turn this back into a wall. Throw that up. Bam. And I'm dead. And last but not least, ice platform. Platforms. Create child. Rename this to ice. Open this up. Activate. And deactivate. So let's make sure, delete the parents. We want the overlapping actors. Get a copy. Plug that in. And then now we want the character movement. Should have just typed character movement. But nonetheless, there you go. Let's do this. And then we are going to want the ground friction, max acceleration, and braking deceleration. The 3 things that are going to help us mimic that ice slippery feeling. So ground friction. Gonna do this and then pull. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Pull that off. And we're gonna want max acceleration. Set that. And then pull that off and do braking deceleration walking. All right. I'm going to shift this over because I actually don't like how the character movement looks. And we'll do that. We'll also copy this, go to deactivate, and we're going to use the same thing. Let's actually move that down. Okay. Except for the deactivate, what we're going to want to do is grab this, remove index, grab index. Go back to activate. Now we need to set the variables for each. So you would be able to go to here. You could type in ground friction, and you'll see that the normal is 8. I already know all the normals that are set, and I have them written on the side. But max acceleration, 1500. Braking deceleration, 2000. So you do have the values there. For me, when I am activating ice, I set the friction 0.8, max acceleration 150, basically dividing them all by 10, 200. Go to deactivate. And then we'll make sure that it is back to the norms. Max acceleration 1500. Braking set to 2000. These are values that I found to be good. What you can do as well is you could promote all of these into variables, so you could play around with the numbers if you want to. I personally am not going to. I prefer the settings that I have. But yeah, you can do that, make sure they're all instant editable, and then you can play around with the settings. So just like the other ones, we'll throw ice down. Ooh, one thing I forgot to do is for the ice platform, we forgot to change it to the cool little ice platform. Change that. Change that to ice. And change that to ice. Awesome. Let's scale this up. And now I'm sliding. And then traction's a little rough. You may want to play around with the animation blueprint a little to just make sure that you don't kind of look like you're doing this weird walking thing. But I mean, honestly, it's fine. It's just, if you're on ice, it's a little hard to walk. And you're sliding. Great. So with that, we have the 3 platforms that we wanted to make. If you enjoyed this series, please feel free to subscribe. I may do some additional platforms and add a bit more into 3D platforms as I come up. If you have any type of feedback or requests that you would like me to add, feel free to let me know, and I'll try to pump out those videos. Thanks for watching.